YouTube. So as you can see here, this is post installation. So I've already completed the install of these AAM S-line short tails here on the 370Z. This is the titanium tip version, which is why it looks like the blued colored. The reason I'm sitting here now, both of the install videos that I put together step by step were done in the evenings after work, so it's pretty dark in the garage. I have minimal lighting. So I wanted to go back, now that it's daytime, even though they're already installed, I'm going to go over a quick couple of points, a key interest, and then I'm going to go through and just visually show you the steps with it already installed. It's really simple, very minimal steps. And then at the end of this video, I'll go ahead and still put together the step-by-step install with the nighttime video, even though it may be hard to see. So you can pick which one you want to view and which one's more beneficial. But I'll go ahead and go through all the steps. Two key things to note while I'm here before I get into the car and start showing you step-by-step. And I've only done this on this one vehicle, so I'm certain that it probably differs a little bit depending on vehicle to vehicle. But for me, in my personal experience, the two key things to note here I wanted to go over. So we have the driver's side here and the passenger side. And for the install of these new short tails, each side basically has one exhaust hanger. The kit itself, so I guess let me step back. So stock, those exhaust hangers just mount flush up directly to the framework of the vehicle itself. They mount flush up. The kit itself comes with some spacer plates that will then go between the mounting bracket of the hanger and the bodywork or the frame rails of this vehicle. And that's the way you can adjust the height that these hang down between the bumper and the tip of the exhaust here. So for me, rather than doing one on each side, the driver's side was actually a little bit lower to begin with, even without the spacer installed. So on my particular setup, and I don't know if it's something that's further up the line, maybe my Y pipe is a little bit off from side to side, I don't know. And I'll show you step by step in the video, but just as a quick rundown here. So for me, I actually installed both of those spacer plates on the passenger side hanger. And then for the driver's side hanger, it's mounted up flush with the frame rail, just like it came stock. So that's one thing to note, that I did have a little bit of a delta there and went ahead and installed both spacer plates onto one side, and then the driver's side here has no spacer plate, just like it came from the factory. So again, that's going to be very vehicle dependent, I bet, but just see what's worked with you. Don't be afraid to not use the spacers at all, or double them up on one side if you need to, like I did. The second key thing to note, and I'm going to write this all up on the AAM website as well as a review, but for me, once I got all of this bolted up, everything was aligned perfectly, installed, and then the tips are basically the last piece that you install and clamp those down onto the end of the tailpipe. Well, for me, no matter what I did, switching the tips around, adjusting everything, no matter what I did, the driver's side tip stuck out further from the bumper than the passenger side. Any kind of adjustment I tried to do didn't work, still had some delta. And I actually liked the way that the passenger side basically went in, and I liked the depth that it had from the bumper itself. It was very close to the stock alignment. Everything looked good. And no matter what I did, I could not get the driver's side to match it. So rather than send it back or do all of that, what I actually ended up doing, and I have the piece in my hand here, I actually ended up removing exactly 1/4 of an inch of the tailpipe that this tip clamps onto. I actually ended up removing a 1/4 inch piece. And that was just based on measurements from the bumper to the end of the pipe. I just tried to match it to what the passenger side was, and ended up cutting off a 1/4 inch piece. I used a little band tool that allows you to cut around this. It has some teeth on it. You can use a cutoff tool, whatever, a cutoff wheel, whatever works for you. Again, I don't know if you're going to have this issue or if this was just specific to my setup. Again, maybe my Y pipe is bent or something further up the line. I don't know. But anyway, ended up removing a 1/2-inch piece here. And now I have very good alignment both up and down as well as side to side between passenger and driver side. And I'm very happy with the overall outcome and the way that it looks and the lines up and matches on both sides. So those are just 2 tips, I guess, word of caution that were unique to my setup. You may have something similar, may have to work through it. I don't think that, you know, this one-size-fits-all kit, maybe it just is still not going to be completely lined up between you and your setup. With that said, I'm now going to get up under the vehicle, even though everything's already installed, but I'm going to go through the steps and the mounting locations real quick of where those hangers are and give you a quick rundown of that. Pretty straightforward stuff, but I just wanted to visually let you see it rather than have to try to go through some forum posts and all of that nonsense. So this should give you just a real quick rundown of where everything's at, as well as a couple additional tips from my experience of installing this kit here. Okay guys, so we're going to start out here and dive under the vehicle. And again, I've already done the install. I'll show those videos after this, but this is just a quick rundown of where the steps would be performed, even though I've already completed them. Okay, so I'm going to run down of all of the different bolt locations that you need to loosen in order to remove the factory exhaust, as well as where you'll be installing the new bolts for the short tails here. And then I'm going to give you a couple quick pointers, so stay tuned after I talk through where these bolts are at. Okay, so if you're going to remove the factory exhaust, there's a few bolts here where we bolt to the Y pipe. So 2 here on the driver's side, 2 here on the passenger side. So go ahead and start by loosening these 4 bolts. And again, imagine that your factory exhaust is hanging underneath here, the factory muffler. But these same bolt locations will apply. You would loosen those, but I wouldn't take the nuts all the way off yet. Now, on the driver's side, there's going to be 2 factory exhaust hangers that you're going to need to remove completely. I find it a lot easier to remove the bracket itself rather than try to just remove the rubber grommet. One of those, if you look right here, with the factory exhaust, there will be an exhaust hanger right here with 1 single bolt. You will not reuse that when you install these short tails, but this is where it would be. Go ahead and remove that, and that bolt will come all the way out. Now, right here towards where the tip of this exhaust is, if you look up, there's going to be the exhaust hanger as well as the bracket and 3 bolts. Let me get my pointer in here. Right here, 1, 2, 3. This will be reused, and then here is the hanger itself where the exhaust hangs from it. But go ahead and just remove this entire bracket, 3 bolts here, and drop that on down. Now, over on the passenger side, again, this one only has 1 bracket right up underneath the tailpipe. You can see where the exhaust hanger is, but if you look here, right next towards the edge of the bumper, again, the same exact type of bracket, 3 bolts in a triangle pattern. Those you would remove and drop down, and that will be it. Once you remove the factory exhaust, it'll drop right down out of the way, and you will be done with that. Okay, now let me talk through the installation of the short tails. Again, you're going to reuse those same brackets here. It's much easier if you go ahead and install the hanger into the rubber grommet before you get up underneath the vehicle. So go ahead and have this already pushed into place. Very simple. You would then pretend that these nuts are off, but you would go ahead and place in between here. There is a gasket that the new kit will come with, followed by the short tail here. You would place that and go ahead and put these on, but loosely put them on until you get the hanger installed. And again, keep all of these bolts loose until you get all of the alignment done afterwards, and then you can clamp everything down tight. One thing to note, I wanted to talk through that here real quick. This is a view on the driver's side. Same thing would apply on the passenger side. But for me, the kit does come with new bolts. that are designed to replace these factory bolts here on the Y-pipe. Now, like most people have done and discussed in the forum, and I did the same thing here, I actually just reused the factory or stock bolts here in addition, as well as the factory nuts also. They fit one-to-one. The nuts on the new kit will not fit the bolts from the factory, okay? And that is because these bolts are actually pressed fitted into the Y-pipe here, and they are a son of a bitch to get out. I actually have a ball joint press kit, you know, a little handheld C-clamp type of thing that's for pressing out ball joints, and it would not work on these either, mainly because it's much larger for this area and it's very hard to get into place and get it to line up. But it was a son of a bitch, so I went ahead and just reused these factory bolts, the same as a lot of people have done. Also, the kit comes with a gasket here, so I did replace the factory gasket with this new gasket. And for me, you can see some of it in here. I actually utilized a little bit of red RTV, so this is high temperature gasket RTV. I used it in between the Y-pipe and this new gasket as well, mainly just to hold it into place, but it'll also help seal up any of those little gaps in there that may give you some of that raspy noise as well. So again, that's up to you. Don't have to do it. I did it more of just a personal preference, and you can see there's a little bit of gap here in between these nuts, but underneath there is completely filled in with that red RTV sealant as well, just to keep everything nice and snug and tight. Okay, same thing on the passenger side here. Next thing to note, if you look up from here, you'll see this silver stainless looking, it's really just an aluminum material, but this silver looking heat shield. So that's because the factory muffler sets all the way up into here. This piece you can leave into place, and there's actually some sealant gaps underneath here, so it looks more aesthetically pleasing to leave it into place. That one you don't have to remove. One thing I did want to note though, however, if you look over here on the passenger side, so I'm going to crawl up under and get a view where you can see up in here. But you'll see some of these hoses coming into here and into this location. So once you get the factory exhaust removed, there's actually a cover that covers these hoses. So this is actually the evaporative canister for some of the emission stuff. But there is a heat shield that covers this back area here. Well, the way that these new S-lines come in and curve around here to go out the tail end, they actually make contact right here on this corner. So you actually have to remove that evaporative canister heat shield here, which again is not really needed anymore, and is not really much of an issue to remove out of the way. In order to do that, there's 3 bolt locations, and it's going to be hard to get them on this camera, but you can see one right here. It's a 10mm bolt. There's one back behind here where my finger's pointing, back behind this hanger. So 2 on this side right next to the tailpipe, and then there's actually one more up here, so you can see those hoses just up above that guy right there in the middle. You can't miss them. They're very simple to find. There's 3 10mm little nuts. You need to remove those. They'll pop down, so then that cover will pop off, and I'll show it to you. I'll put it over here in the screen view, a picture of that cover. But that pops down, and then I actually went ahead and just put the nuts back into place on the bolts. That way I won't ever lose them, and then that way they can stay in their home where they came from. And it's also good because you certainly will need this one. It actually holds the other edge of this canister cover on. So go ahead and put that one into place. Okay, so let me swing back out of here. So there you have it, guys. In a nutshell, that is it. Those 4 or 5 little locations and pieces of information, that is it. Very simple. And again, I didn't use these new bolts, but very simple. Now let me back out of here in the daylight and give you a view of the alignment of these 2 tailpipes. So you can see over here on the passenger side the gap as well as the center alignment in the bumper cutout, and then move over to the driver's side. Again, very similar. Very nice fitment. I think everything fits well. And then if I step back, it's going to be hard to see the alignment. But there you have it. Looks very good. And another word of advice, you can see I do have jack stands up underneath there. That gives you much more room. So I have, I don't know, 2.5 feet between the bumper and the ground. Makes it much more enjoyable to be digging under there. I think you could do it without the jack stands. Maybe you could even do some ramps if you have them for the wheels, but I think it makes it much easier, gives you a lot more room to get under there and work. Work smart, not hard.